Hello there. So, welcome to yet another episode of Velocity by Hawky.ai. So, today we have Abhishek Upadhya, who is SVP at Madison at HiveMinds, which is a part of Madison World. He takes care of media and analytics at HiveMinds. He is working at the intersection of media as well as tech and especially leading AI innovations, and I think his expertise spans across in travel, luxury retail, real estate, and e-commerce, and so on as well. So really excited to have him here. So we have had great discussions in the past, and whenever I speak with him, he introduced me to a new concept, and I hope today also we get to hear a lot of new concepts and new opinions from Abhishek. Glad to have you here, Abhishek, and welcome to the podcast.
Likewise, thank you for hosting me.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So yeah, I think as I sort of gave a small intro while we get started about you. So I think you have a really vast experience in the digital marketing, all the way from media and brands and now tech and AI and so on and so forth, right? Why don't you give a very brief introduction about yourself in terms of how you came here and what did you see on the way and so on and so forth. Abhishek, we'll get started from there.
I think it's been a fantastic journey for me, working with brands, starting from handling their online business growth via performance to launching a branding division within HiveMinds. In the way, I mean, I come from an engineering background, so there was tech has always been a joyful thing to work with. And especially in the past few years, when we see the intersection of marketing and technology to such a high degree, and we can see the kind of multiplier effects that's coming because of technology. So it just was a natural thing for me to work with. So that intersection came because of that reason, and I'm seeing fantastic results out of that coming in for hive minds, myself, and for our teams, where we're playing around with a lot of interesting tech that's in our field, and seeing results on the fly, working out for us in the fields of inciting, in the fields of efficiency, as well as I think generally knowing more about the space in which we operate in a shorter amount of time, right? And I think that's the kind of cutting edge technology that we're working with, and it really helps. And I think AI has just blown it multifold to give it to our fingertips in that sense in such a quick manner. And I'm just quite excited about what's in the near future itself at the kind of pace that we all are growing at.
Got it, Abhishek. So, I think you spent one of the leading performance marketing agencies. So, and I have also seen a trend in terms of, let's say, certain performance marketing agencies like yours are way ahead than the market, both with respect to other agencies as well as primarily with respect to the brands. And I've seen that your agencies are little ahead in the curve in a lot of this expertise. Is that happening? Like, is that something that is architected? How do you sort of make, or let's say, with ever changing algorithms, tech algorithms, and so on and so forth? How do you cope up to that, and how do you still end up leading the pack, kind of?
Yeah, I think see the kind of brands that we work with. There's a good mix of enterprises, SMBs, as well as startups, right? And
Mm.
each of those entities value a different facet of what
Mm.
we have to offer, right? Enterprises, I think, value a lot of stability. They
Mm.
want reliable means of growth. They want reliable means of knowing their business trajectory, and their plans are reasonably very well solidified, right? But
Okay.
they do value the kind of agility that an agency can bring in, right? Especially the fact that the very fact that we are glued into so many brands at the same time, with diverse experiences, with diverse life stages, with different new technology or creative or new thoughts bringing in at the same time, right? We are able to think of it and percolate in a right manner to our entire portfolio of brands in a quick way.
Okay.
So when things are going good in the business world, we're able to percolate that effect quickly across a lot of our brands. When things are maybe not going so well, we're able to shield it quicker because we are able to sense that warning from so many other brands as well. So if something has gone
Correct.
wrong in the algorithm, or something has gone wrong, I mean, we all saw things like COVID, right? So we were
Yeah.
able to understand the kind of behavior and act on a lot of those quickly for a lot of the brands. While brands would be figuring it out on their own, would have their own set of reactions to it, etc. Right? You get comfort in knowing that there's an agency watching out for you, looking out for you, knowing that
Correct.
they're able to quickly share the best practices and rise all of our brands together at the same time, right? I think that's where the agency experience comes in, and largely, I think even from a tech perspective, right? So it makes sense that if you're able to alpha test, beta test a few products that are new in the market or what something IPs that we are building, right? We have a roster of brands who are as curious as us to test out the kind of new products in the market or what IPs we have built. And based on
Yeah.
that, we're able to fine tune it based on the kind of those curious early adopters and have a roster of brands who can adopt and can
Sure.
rise using those products in a very quick time, as opposed to that kind of product or technology reaching them maybe a year late or 2 years late because people were didn't take a risk or there were costs associated with
Yeah.
taking that risk, or there was no person in house to adapt to that technology in time because you're caught up in your day-to-day business, right? So in a way, the fact that we have the technological know-how, the expertise, and the will, right, to devote time and attention to not just solving for the present, but also solving for the future, right? And it's because we
Got
are
it.
need to look at the 2 years in future, we're able to
Yeah.
bring in those product innovations, etc., to the present.
Got it. Got it, Abhishek. No, that's great actually, and I have seen that sort of inquisitiveness and the interest and the way how you. I've seen you challenge people and providers in terms of how to push the limits and so on. Right. So I think yeah, that's completely in line. And one thing, let's say, particularly if you have to comment on the change of algorithms, the Meta or Google or any algorithms, digital marketing algorithms for that matter, and so on. So, and then there is the second aspect of it that you highlighted was the consumer behavior. Then the third is like what's new, like how to probably run more experiments, run more initiatives, and so on. Right. So, is there a specific set of team or people who are responsible for keeping a track of the changes in algorithm, keeping a track of consumer behavior changes or market research, and then another for tech and innovation and so on? Is that how it is structured? Not only from your team standpoint in general in such leading agencies, is that how it is structured?
I think people have tried both of these systems where there have been designated earmark people for platform innovations, identifying the trends in the platform, new algorithm changes, etc., and percolating
Right.
it through the organization and hence through to the clients and so on. Right? I think
Sure.
at least we at HiveMinds have kind of favored a mixed model, right? So one of the things that we do is like every Friday without fail, clockwork. The team gets together and bounces off new things happening in the industry, and
Hmm.
it's immediately kind of made actionable to say, okay, this idea will fit for this brand, this idea will fit for this
Hmm.
technology, and so on.
Okay.
So no matter who the initial champion is,
Hmm.
by a week's time, all of us are champions at that idea.
Okay.
I think that percolation, I think, has been really helpful. We call it a Friday knowledge sharing session. In a
Okay.
way, it's kind of the heartbeat or the that mind thing of the company, right?
Yeah.
Which ensures
Yeah.
that all the new things are quickly disseminated within the organization, no matter who brought it up, right? And
Hmm.
everyone, right, is empowered to bring up that new idea, right? And
Hmm.
that, I think, has made a
Got it.
change, right? I think that's been fantastic for me as well. In that sense, I
Yeah.
play kind of an orchestrator role in some sense, from an
Hmm.
innovation practice, to ensure that this rhythm is maintained and that culture and spirit is maintained.
Hmm. Got it, Abhishek. No, yeah, I mean, of course, like such wonderful minds working across various projects, trying to bring it onto a single table every week, right? I can imagine how impactful those sessions can be, right? You also mentioned about like trying a lot of new tools and new experiments and so on. Do you keep a track of uh, early returns or return on investment and measure success of these investments, or like you can call it either investments or experiments and so on, right? So how do you keep a track of it? Is it not overwhelming to do it at scale? And also, is there any methodology or process that you use? How do you measure such tools?
Yeah. So what we've done as a practice, and this is often like a global best practice as well, is to firstly, when um, we identify the need state and the kind of problem that we want to solve, right? What's the kind of business problems, or what's the kind of scale problem or efficiency problem or inciting problem that
Hmm.
we're trying to solve. So once we've
Yeah.
identified that, we do scout across in the market, right, of the kind of
Okay.
tools that are addressing it, or if we have to build it, it's often the buy or build decision, right? So those sort of decisions, once we take, we scout in the market as to who is the sort of right players and so on, right? And um, once we then outline the kind of uh, problem statements and the kind of solution and the timeline by which it has to get
Hmm.
solved, right? Create
Right.
very clear parameters of success, right? The idea
Hmm.
is that
Hmm.
I think we mutually believe, and this with any partner, is that open-ended or vague problems are not fun to solve, right?
Okay.
It's
Hmm.
to know, it's good to know some bounded parameters, all right,
Hmm.
within which you want to explore, right? Because the time, energy, capacity everyone has is finite, right? In terms of
Correct.
how much they can solve in what amount of time, right? So
Yeah.
it would be very nice, and it's a sign of mutual respect, right, with the
Hmm.
partner, that you kind of keep some bounded parameters, right? Um, and obviously, when you're picking, pick the best set of skills, capabilities, the kind of tech that's being used, and so on, and pick for the future. Pick for the future. Do
Hmm.
not pick something that it's already looks like it's going to get outdated, right?
Got it.
So
Hmm.
I think that's one very useful thing. But I personally judge it along two axes, right? One is the use, which is all this, right? The tech, how much it can solve for us, what's the kind of efficiencies or insights or new stuff that's bringing to us, and so on. That's the use aspect. The next aspect is
Hmm.
usability, right? You
Hmm.
might have access to a Ferrari, but if someone doesn't know how to drive it, right, there's no point
Hmm.
having that, right? So
Yeah.
one of the things is also how I measure success is by how quickly can it percolate through the organization, right? So
Hmm.
one of the ways in which you sort of solved for it is having some teams as designated alpha testers for a new product, and this could be different for different products. It's not like the
Hmm.
same team is doing this day in day out, right? So for
Sure.
product A, it will be team A, product B will be team B, and so on. That allows us, a, it is if you go by the traditional innovation testing kind of a pipeline, right, then the same team is stuck with all the product testing. They become the bottleneck, and it doesn't float to the next part of the organization because next part of the organization has no clue what these guys are testing on, right? So by having
Got it.
multiple teams parallelly testing out different pieces of technology, it improves kind of probability of it percolating. That is one piece. Second, it allows us to
Got it.
test more things at the same time without creating an artificial
Understood.
bottleneck, right? So this is
Understood.
really helpful.
Got
So
it.
the use and usability access, and then obviously put a certain timeline. Say maybe it could be a 90-day timeline, a 6-month timeline, and so on, by which you
Right.
might want to have listed an n number of accounts. It must have resulted in solving for the primary KPIs that we set out for. It could be in terms of
Right.
time scale, it could be in terms of the ROAS improvement, it could be in terms of the amount of creatives you're able to test out, or either in
Yeah.
scale, efficiency, quality, one of these parameters, right? So then we check again, and then we know that, oh, yes, this has met our use parameters. The usability is how many teams are able to adopt to it, right? So I think I am quite confirmed in my stance that unless both the use and usability are aligned, right, it will just be an academic project for a few people which will never take off, and that
Got
doesn't
it.
help organization.
No, that's excellent analogy and comparison, Abhishek. Yeah. So I think if we have to put it this way, I think the GPT or the OpenAI was probably the leading consumer AI app till, let's say, maybe 3 months back or something like that. The play of image generation came up with respect to Gemini. I think that's where people actually started seeing the result, and I think it's a wonderful feeling of maybe remixing your own photos and all these things and so on. Right? It's something I think it pulled a lot of things, and I think yeah, this great, and yeah, it's true. Like one is the consumer angle of it, and the other one is the usability of it, and I think that's where the mass adoption happens there. So now I think there is festive season coming up and so on and so forth, right? So how are things there at your end, and how's the is it usually extremely hectic during these times, and also how do you approach festives, especially from a performance marketing standpoint, right? Do you approach totally differently, or do you sort of, let's say, continue doing whatever you are doing, probably, let's say, in a little larger scale and so on? How do you usually approach festive season? How do you plan for it, Abhishek? You can maybe pick industries. I think luxury, retail, or travel and e-com. You can split and say how it actually translates.
So I think for us, as with a lot of marketing agencies, Festive is a key portion of our brand's business and hence our business as well,
Yeah.
right? A lot of planning goes into probably close to 60 days to 45 days prior to the festive period, right?
Okay.
Actually, slightly even earlier, because a lot of the brand messaging, the brand communication, the kind of advertising ramp ups we need to do, right? Kind of buy-ins or the kind of um, add impacts that we want to create, right, during the festive period. A lot of that gets decided in a very well thought out process, right, close to 60 to even 75 days prior to the festive period itself, right? And then it's a lead up to that, to the festive period. After that, it's like pure execution at scale and with rigor, right? So midnight of the sale, we've seen multifold traffic coming in from various parts of India. There is, I think, a lot of pent up kind of buying demand that was there, that got amplified due to the whole extra savings that kicked in. We've seen this in sectors on auto. We've seen this in the kind of jewelry related sectors as well. And now leading up to Diwali, that's going to be big as well, right? And in e-commerce, in terms of electronics, in terms of phones, I think it's been a massive sales period.
Yeah.
I think most brands have. closed on their entire festive targets within a few days, right?
Wow. Okay.
It's been quite a phenomenal week that way. And for us, I think festive demands a lot of spike planning and
Mm.
very precise, very meticulous execution. That ensures that through the day, the kind of rising demand that exists, you have captured
Mm.
it near fully,
Correct.
right? I
Mm.
think that for us is a hallmark at HiveMinds.
Mm.
The whole inciting planning, all that rigor that happens prior to the festive, and on that day, it's just pure brilliant execution, right? And that's worked out really well. This combination has worked really well.
Wow. Okay, great. Yeah, actually, yeah. Even the GST thing came up as a boost this year, right? That's really great. And you're saying like the brands have already completed the target for festive, while the majority part of festive is still
At least the ones on e-commerce to a good extent. I
nice,
think
nice.
it's been as in the rest of the festive can work in a BAU mode, and you will
Hmm.
still be good.
Oh, super.
So that sense, right? So it's been quite interesting to know that the consumer sentiment has been quite high.
Hmm.
And this is seen across the board. What was interesting this year, I think, is Q-commerce got a lot bigger. So there was through the entire festive periods, which usually starts from somewhere around Onam, Raksha Bandhan, Ganesh Chaturthi till
Hmm.
say Diwali and slightly beyond, right? And leading up to the
Hmm.
wedding season, that entire some 3 month period is like a festive thing within the Indian space. And what we were seeing this year, much more than last year's, was the entire mimicking of quick commerce to fall into the same spike cycles as
Hmm.
the regular e-commerce, right? So there was
Got it.
one-to-one mirroring of the same kind of festivals, the same kind of marketing, same kind of spike intensities, product
Hmm.
selection, and so on. I think some of the quick commerce brands had their big sale event just 3 days,
Yeah.
4 days prior to
Yes.
the kind of e-commerce big sale events, right? So I think it showed a sign of maturity that quick commerce has been
Hmm.
adopted by the near mass, if not mass premium at least, right? Audiences
Got it.
have definitely
Hmm.
adopted it. And for us, it's a whole new arena of inciting because you suddenly have a huge nuance of hyper local micro market product
Hmm.
nuances, product
Hmm.
preferences,
Hmm.
festives which are tuned at micro region level
Hmm.
because some northern part of Tamil Nadu might have a different festive nuance
Correct.
than a southern part of Tamil Nadu and so on, which was previously going
True.
unnoticed at even at a state scale, right? So I think it's been a phenomenal year that way for Indian commerce in general, and we are proud to be one of the leading champions of that movement in that sense.
Got it, Abhishek. No, I think even I am really interested in seeing how the quick commerce, particularly from a insight standpoint, right? Are quick commerce insights coming back to the brand and also probably to the larger performance marketing channels what you are using right now? Like you mentioned, like yes, in different states, there will be cultural pockets and different cultural pockets behave differently, decisions differ, kind of product usage differs, and so on. So, is that data also flowing back to your campaign execution process, not just on quick commerce, but in general on other channels?
Yeah, it has given us some very good uh, thought processes in terms of what are the
Hmm.
kind of local demands that exist, what are the kind
Okay.
of local product preferences that exist.
Yeah.
Plus, I think one clear insight is no two pin codes are same when it comes to say affluency, right? The kind of
Hmm. Yeah.
premiumness differs from pin code to pin code, right? So
Hmm.
you know that certain kind of stock keepings, right, could
Hmm.
be different for each pin code depending on the kind of product preferences they have. So while premiumness is known was loosely at a metro level versus a non-metro level, etc. If
Yeah.
you look at even something as one of the well-known sectors for this would be real estate. It's not like
Mm.
every part of the city has the same square foot price,
Correct.
right? So
Yeah.
why would or why should any of the other consumer product keeping behave in a one
Mm.
system for the city manner, right? So I think quick commerce has certainly taught us that in a very good way. And now with a lot of the platforms bringing in their own inciting mechanisms as well,
Mm.
you get to know this
Mm.
very easily in the same locality. Now
Mm.
we're actually going for that an equal to one sort of personalization in that sense in the approaches
Mm.
that we follow
Mm.
by ensuring that the creative, the messaging, the kind of
Mm.
product selection, showcase, the retargeting is personalized, right? At a very unique level, right?
Mm. Correct.
The kind of searches you're doing, the kind of searches I am doing, they're vastly different, and the kind of product preference, everything. So why should our advertising be the same? Why should our
Correct.
product case be the same, and so on? Right?
Mm.
I think that's one
Okay.
thing that I'm particularly interested about in terms of how can these platforms make
Mm.
it so more personalized for me. Obviously, within the realm of privacy and safety and all that being handled as a obviously thing, right?
Mm.
So we're particularly interested about that. I think the whole
Sure.
creative personalization, creative inciting at n equal to one. I think that will be quite
Mm.
interesting to notice. Yeah.
Yeah, Abhishek. So yeah, that's really interesting. So particularly with respect to creative analysis, right? So I think you are someone who comes out as a really strong, let's say, advocate for measuring things and analysis and so on. So how do you see creative analysis, and what is the maturity of, let's say, creative analysis currently being done, and so on and so forth? I think you also touch base upon how different organizations and different teams inside different organizations see it in a or in a different maturity levels when it comes to creative analysis now. And can you explain what's your take on it, and also probably if you can explain us what you used to do earlier and now with hockey, how it has changed, if it has changed, and right. So if you can explain it.
So I
Correct.
think one very useful practice at HiveMinds has been the kind of time and effort we get into analyzing the kind of creatives, what creatives to introduce into the kind of campaigns we're running, at what frequency do we change it to avoid fatigue, at what kind of mix of video versus static should there be, at
Yeah.
what point do you introduce influencers into the mix, right? So I
Hmm.
think a lot of these creative nuances have always been with the kind of campaigns we've been doing. At some point, maybe it was only search, maybe it was only variations in text tags. After that, it became text and display. After that, it became text, display, video, and so on,
Hmm.
right? And now influencers is there in the mix. A lot of this analysis used to be very manual,
Hmm.
and at some point, it became, I would say, semi-automated with the likes of Power BI and so on, where we were able to clear together the, even though the funnel as such is very passe, there is still
Hmm.
some understanding of what kind of creatives build in attention, awareness, what kind of
Hmm.
creatives build in content, and so on, right? And the eventual
Right.
call to action. So we were
Hmm.
able to clearly see what kind of messaging is like an alpha creative, which works better than the average. What
Hmm.
kind of messaging is subpar, or what kind of
Correct.
messaging is not resonating with the audience. And this
Hmm.
was possible through a mix of part manual and part semi-automated exercises, right?
Yeah.
But what we would often notice, it was still not quick enough. It was still not scaling enough to meet the kind of
Hmm.
needs we had in terms of
Hmm.
rapidly switching gears if something is not working. It is still very
Okay.
there would be practices like, okay, every Tuesday we will refresh our creatives because weekend is important for our business, so it takes this
Okay.
much time to learn. So can we change our creatives on Tuesday so that the learning is not affected, right? Now, but
Okay.
these are all like what you would call as ancient laws and rules that have been passed through the system, right? And it might not necessarily be the best practice, but it is way better than doing nothing, right?
Correct.
So, but when you have access to so much data, when you have access to the kind of tech and systems, why not make it fully automated in that sense? Why not make it fully visible, so
Yeah.
that the same brain behind the brand can take actions much faster, right? I was giving the
Hmm.
Ferrari analogy earlier. Now
Right.
imagine there are people in the organization who are capable of driving a Ferrari, but
Hmm.
they have been given a barely okay-ish car, right?
Hmm.
Now imagine give that Ferrari to them, right? The kind of
Hmm.
wonders they'll do with it, right? I think
Yes.
that's the kind of approach we have with tech, is that
Hmm.
it's people have this anxiety about, oh, what will AI do, and what will AI do to
Yeah.
my job, and that, right? So, but I think what we've often found is, and this is like now a well-known adage, it is the human plus AI will perform better than either the human or the AI alone, right? The human plus AI will be better at the job than the human alone. I think
Correct.
that synergy is was something that we are quite bullish on, and that we're
Hmm.
seeing in day to day, right? The amount of data that gets generated about the kind of consumer actions, engagement, awareness, the kind of
Hmm.
creatives, and so on. Going at the micro level of it, this color works versus this doesn't. This pose
Correct.
works versus this doesn't. Um, um,
Correct.
there is a creative which has a parent and a kid talking about something versus just the
Yeah.
parent alone, right? So I
Yes.
think a lot of like the intuitions were always there. I mean, people had built intuitions to their career. Now, what
Hmm.
would make it stellar is backing that intuition with the data-driven insight, right? And to do it repeatedly. It's not because, "Oh, I'm tired this time, I'm not able to think extra for the whatever," right?
Correct.
It is
Hmm.
without fail that insight is happening, right?
Hmm.
And that insight is happening regardless of what the brand is spending, right? Imagine,
Yes.
if only if you need to spend X amount of huge amounts of money to get an insight, then maybe that is a wrong practice, right? The very fact that you have access to such good technologies, say such as Hockey, with
Hmm.
the kind of AI backing, the kind of insight backing, that it would democratize that insight to anyone using it. And
True.
for me,
Hmm.
that is exceptionally beautiful, because from the moment you're onboarding a client, right,
Hmm.
there is no need to wait for an X amount of campaigns or X amount of learning or whatever to get to that
Hmm.
kind of insight page, right? And to get to a sweet spot of what creatives work, what don't, right? And the best part is you can even ingest the kind of past data that they have, right? Start from scratch, right? Campaigns and so on. So you are able to hit the road running from the start, from the moment you onboard a client, right? For me, that's quite interesting. One of the frameworks we follow internally is something called stop, start, continue. What have you been
Okay.
doing so far that you should stop doing
Hmm.
because it's not the right thing?
Yeah.
Okay, what are the things that you're doing which is actually really good that you should continue? Just because
Correct.
you are with the agency now doesn't mean you're going to stop everything and start everything afresh. Some things are good, like why not continue them, right? And what should you start with, right? So when you work with this sort of a thought process, right, it will be very useful to have AI-enabled tools, say, such as Hockey, which will give
Hmm.
insights under these buckets, right? So that we
True.
know these sort of
Hmm.
creatives are working, continue them. These sort of creatives are not at all working for you, right? Change them
Hmm.
immediately. It acts as a
Hmm.
stop loss, right? There is no
Yeah.
reason to continue with a bad performing creative for more than necessary, right? Once you know that it is statistically past the kind of significance levels and it's clear that it is performing below average, there is no reason
Hmm.
pumping in more money, right? I would rather,
True.
it's actually double loss for me. I could have used that money
Hmm.
towards a better,
Yeah.
right?
True.
So I think with the fully automated kind of systems that we're trying to build now, along with
Hmm.
Hockey, it is uh, taking this sort of analysis at fingertips to the larger
Mhm.
organization.
So yeah, that's great. That's great to know as well, Abhishek. And yeah, glad to be working with you on those lines, and especially in the creative intelligence and the creative analysis space with yours. So now, especially in the AI era, Abhishek. So what kind of skills do you think are going to be really important? I'm talking primarily from the human skills standpoint. Let's say what was important probably a couple of years back might probably have gone down in importance. There might be few new skill sets that would have been that would be more apt, or let's say more useful at this point of time, with a lot of tools coming in and a lot of, let's say, more, when people are getting more powerful, what kind of skills they want, kind of, right? So what's your take on it? What have you seen? Like, is there any strong pattern that something was, we were looking for this kind of people earlier, now we are looking for different kind of people, especially when it comes to, let's say, adding power to your team and so on, Abhishek?
Yeah. See, I think the kind of skills and the rigor and that hunger that we search for in a candidate, I think those primary human skills haven't changed. They will continue to
Okay.
remain the same. What is interesting, and I think that's a flavor that we are adding increasingly, is how the kind of they can work with technology, right? The kind of
Mm,
technology exposure that they've got, because we
mm,
increasingly feel that, as gave the analogy earlier, the human plus AI is the far
yes.
better uh, synergistic system, right? That we feel can act as a force multiplier, right? So in
Mm,
this regard, I think the clarity of what kind of technologies they work with, the kind of at least that curiosity, right?
yeah.
That if presented with a tool, if presented
Mm,
with a new form of working, can they adapt to
mm,
it? Right? I think
mm,
that's something that we continue to look for, and
mm,
that I think will propel us in the kind of the newer world that exists, right?
mm,
So, in terms of usage of AI specifically, I think what has not changed is people who have had that clarity of thought of uh, what is the problem they're trying to solve, right?
mm,
And broad indications of how they want to solve it, right?
mm.
The solution that comes out of an AI is as good as the prompt in some sense,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that clarity of thought, that what, how much do you know about the business, how much do you know about the brand, how much do you know about the kind of technology you're working with, right? And
Mm,
that distilling of that clarity onto the prompt, I think, is
mm,
what yields the best results, right? You might
mm.
have, as I said, you might have the access to the fantastic technologies, but if you
Yes.
don't know how to navigate it, if you don't know how to make use of it, there's no point, right? So, which means that the moment you give technology in the hands of people and make it accessible, I think we are probably just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of
Yeah.
how much new intellectual revolutions are going to come about.
Mm, mm,
Because someone had a brilliant idea, they didn't know how to code it into an
mm.
app. Now they do.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for the kind of genius apps that are going to come about, the kind of
Yeah.
technological solutions that are going to come about. Maybe someone is going to solve
Mm.
metro traffic using AI, right? Things like that. I mean, I'm quite excited about what can happen.
Yeah, definitely, Abhishek. I think you are, I think, spot on. I think the usability of the tool also comes into picture, but primarily then, even when we are hiring for, or when we are building the team as well, we should look for, maybe I think we need to go back to the fundamentals of, let's say, first principles, and maybe strong in terms of clarity, communication, and maybe having a little bit broader idea of things, having business idea of things, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, great. And how do you see this particularly with respect to the core skills? Let's say when I say core skills, the core expertise, like maybe someone who knows PPC better, or someone who knows paid media better, or algorithms better, and so on. So, do you still give importance to those as well, as equally to the first principles thinking and other soft skills part of it, Abhishek?
Uh, I think it's kind of a mixed question. It's I would still rate the first principles higher,
Okay.
especially in the new era where a
Hmm.
lot of the platform jargon, which was
Hmm.
acting as gatekeeping for new people to explore, or for merchants to explore marketing themselves. It was acting as a jargon, it was acting as a limiter. But I think you would often see this now in the uh, mom and pop stores or slightly smaller sort of establishments. It could be individual doctors, lawyers, garages, and dentists, and so on, who are able to set up a functional campaign in their chosen hyperlocal area using just some click of a few buttons, right? Without knowing the complete underlying technology against it. They know how much business
Hmm.
they want, they know how much budget they
Yeah.
can fulfill, they know the best
Yeah.
of their business to communicate the creative and the copy, right?
Hmm.
And the rest of it
Yeah.
is just technology doing the background work in terms of
Correct.
putting the right ad out there, right audience, and right bids, and so on. I think we
Yeah.
emphasize too much on those aspects which were kind of
Hmm.
jargons of industry. It's
Hmm.
giving, it's democratizing in some sense. It's giving power back in the hands of the marketer
Yeah. Hmm.
to do what they do best, which is understanding the consumer, the space of
Right.
what drives the business, and so on, and not just frill
Hmm.
about okay whether it is A technology or A platform or B platform, whether the creative
Hmm.
is 300 cross 250 versus something else. I think the system can take care of a lot of those nuances, right?
Hmm.
It all it demands is the whole clarity of what's my business, what are my goals, what are my
Yeah.
objectives, and so on, right? And once you've given that
Hmm.
clarity, a lot of the rest, writing the perfect copy, writing the perfect, making the creative, a lot of the things machine can take care of, right? But
Correct.
that is
Hmm.
going to be very interesting, because in the long tail of advertising in India, I think about 30% of business is coming from these small stores
Hmm.
who are
Hmm.
just catering to their neighborhood, who are just
Yeah.
PL of sorts, or the entire local area marketing of sorts, pamphlets and so on, is
Correct.
going to go digital. Now that's a
Hmm.
huge potential for brands who
Hmm.
don't want to worry about the technology of it. They know it will work in the back,
Yeah.
right? They want to
Hmm.
ensure that they cater to the business, they handle their business well. The demand generation has become outsourced,
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
to necessarily people, but to the technology. That's going to be
True.
super interesting for any platform that's building at scale,
Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
because um, they would want to know, okay, this is the kind of pattern trends. We were discussing earlier about micro trends that happen within a region, right? What kind of
Yeah.
uh, ingredient shampoos are growing in the region, what kind of
Hmm.
clothing styles are in preference, and so on.
Hmm.
The right smart mind, the merchant, would be able to ensure that their stock
Yeah.
is rightly suited to the right region for a short period of time, depending on the trend. So they're able to fully capture
Correct.
a trend depending on the latest TV show or serial or influencer choice or climate, etc., etc. So
True. True.
once you have a system that can do all that background operations at scale in the background, the
Hmm.
marketer is able to realize immense value
Hmm.
without having to worry about the technological jargons and the algorithm and whatnot. Right?
Okay.
Actually, they
Okay.
never had to,
Interesting.
but it was
Yeah.
the technology wasn't ready for them yet. Now it is.
No, I agree there because I also I had a discussion with a person from Google and even they were sort of trying to see how ads can be accessible for a really small business, right? How can we do that? Maybe it can be through GPay or it can be through a different platform and so on. I think Meta is now releasing the stories as an ad for WhatsApp and so on and so forth. Right? I think all these are tending towards enabling such small businesses to be able to access ads, to be able to access promotion and so on. Yeah, interesting take there, and I think there is going to be direct impact of that with respect to the skills that are going to be valued and skills that are probably going to be democratized over a period of time, right? I really like that correlation there, Abhishek. Thanks for that. So yeah, I think as an agency, you have also highlighted about building IPs and building academics also, right? So, what's your take on it? I think HiveMinds as an agency is little more, let's say, both bullish as well as is more popular for creating a lot of IPs and in-house academics and so on, right? So, what's the thought behind that, and how is it helping you probably immediately, long run, and how do you see that? Why and what?
Yeah. So we've been, I think, since our inception, we've been quite strong on the aspects around data driven and usage of technology.
Hmm.
We have a full fledged analytics division within HiveMinds that acts as both the business intelligence piece as well as the productizing uh, piece. Right. So a lot of our thought process around once you've identified a core business problem, right, it goes into the whole, as I said, the buy or build kind of decision phase, right? And if we know that there is a 6 month to 9 month kind of a window uh, which would take to kind of build this, right? We do scout for options which are available in the market because time is of the
Hmm.
essence, right? So
Hmm.
the same technological improvement, say you get a 10% improvement in whatever metric you're talking about, but that
Hmm.
multiplied by that 10% happening every month for 9 months, that already pays for and more for the product that you bought, right?
Yeah.
So if, however, something is a very core expertise and something where we have built an internal thought process that is superior to what the market has to offer, right? And we know we can build it in a quick time frame, right? So in that
Okay.
sense, we do, build it on our own, right? So shopping
Yeah.
at scale, especially on the likes of Google, Meta, etc., is actually quite a scale problem to solve, especially
Yes.
because the product prices, the nature of the product, availability of the product, a lot of these change on a
Hmm.
very regular basis, right?
Correct.
And as per rules, and it's the right thing to do, the customer needs to see the right stock information, the right price,
Yes.
the right product
Yes.
information at all times. Else, it would be
Hmm.
considered misleading, right? So
Correct.
now 100 products at 200 products, yes, you can do this manually, right?
Yeah.
But we handle clients where the scale is at a few million SKUs, right? Now at million SKUs, the problem suddenly is no longer a manual thing to solve. By the
Yeah.
time you're editing the milk price for the day, and for across all geographies, right, you would
Hmm.
have spent half the day, which
Yeah.
is basically that business is gone, right? So,
Yes.
which means that kind of real time, near real time technologies that we had to build were very unique to the kind of learnings we had and the kind of
Hmm.
expertise we had in place. So, we use the necessary public and proprietary APIs, right? And
Hmm.
we built a solution around it called FeedX. This is now a
Oh.
trademark product that we, in fact, it's you could go to feedx.ai and you would
Hmm.
see the product. So this
Okay.
is across now some leading brands which are into e-commerce, retail, luxury retail, and so on,
Hmm.
where we have deployed this, and it's been running for more than 1.5 2 years now. So the
Okay.
idea of FeedX is to ensure that your shopping presence online, with respect to feeds, the nature of the feeds, the content of it, and so on, is
Hmm.
present, it's accurate, it's optimized,
Hmm.
and it's near real time. So depending
Got it.
on the kind of things that happen at your ERP's end, in terms of the customer, the kind of product details and so on, in a near real
Hmm.
time, it percolates what is available in front of the consumer in terms of the ad. So
Hmm.
the customer
Got it.
always receives the relevant ad information. As a result,
Hmm.
the feed is the uptime of the feed is close to 99.5% plus, which is
Hmm.
basically no downtime as such,
Yeah.
and that improves overall CTR, SCACs, and so on, and your overall SOV because you are always present with a
Got it.
great availability. Couple of
Hmm.
other products we built. one is in the creative space. It's called Visual, which
Mm.
is again uses aspects around Gemini, AI, Google Vision API, etc., to um ensure that your creative pre-testing is done to the best practices of
Okay.
various platforms like Google and Meta.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
ensures that AI creative generation is done with the aesthetics and the brand suitability and all the brand nuances taken care of. And we also have a staging app within the system which ensures that your creative management process, right, is handled as well. Right. So overall, we're building a creative suite in that sense that can be used by both the brand manager as well as the creative teams, right, to ensure the best creative testing happens and so on, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's great, Abhishek. And I think I can see the enthu in your eyes when you are speaking about these products and IPs, right? I think, yeah, great job. Thanks a lot, Abhishek. Thanks for your time so far. I think we had really great conversation so far. I'd like one last question from you before we sort of end the session. Like we always ask for a couple of recommendations for people on who can come into the podcast next, right? So who would you recommend us to speak to next? Maybe two suggestions, Abhishek.
Very, very interesting. I'd recommend two people in like who was super close to me, and from our
Mm.
local, one I would recommend Jyotirmai, who is
Sure.
our founder at HiveMinds, and
Yeah. Yeah.
she comes with a technology background as well as she has grown HiveMinds from zero to
Mm.
such a beautiful. I think she would be a brilliant person to have on this podcast. I would
Sure.
recommend Shan from Namayatri and Razorpay,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
who has been at various interesting companies across his illustrative career. I think he would be a
Sure.
fantastic person to be on this podcast as well. The kind of regional influencer as well as performance plus branding creative journey that they've
Mm.
done with the brand of
Mm.
Namayatri to make it a
Okay.
household movement in some sense, I think has been
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I think there will be a lot of learnings at scale because each market they've launched in demanded a different creative approach, and they have
True.
learned the nuance of that market and grown in that market. So I think that would be a fantastic.
Mm.
These
For
people who
sure.
are
I
very
think
close
great
to me,
suggestions.
they would be right people.
Got it, Abhishek. Thanks a lot. I think I've heard about Jyotirmay from a lot of people and would really love to host her in the podcast. And I think, yeah, Namayatri, I am also a very frequent user of Namayatri, and it always gives the feeling of it's built for this city or built for this location kind of vibe, whichever city I'm in, right? So I think, yeah, that's again, would love to speak with Dan as well. Superb. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Abhishek. Thanks for your time so far today. We had an excellent discussion, and
Hosting. Yeah.
I think, yeah, we'll would love to have you again, maybe sometime with different scenario and different problem statements.
Thank you for hosting me. It's a fantastic set of questions, and I wish the best success for hockey. And can't wait to see what are the new features you build next. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.